Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, the world looks so much different than it did this time last year. And in the time span of just 12 months, the global workforce shifted remote and left their desk in the office behind. And did you know that approximately 80% of the total workforce, or 2.7 billion, actually make up a deskless population? And that includes people like sales reps, customer service advisors, technicians, and many more. And those that were new to remote work faced issues arising from a lack of digital tools to aid their productivity, an inability to access real-time information and dated communication and reporting systems that just didn't reach consumers where they were on their mobile devices. So in order to survive 2020, companies were forced to evolve and evolve fast. Now aware of the vast disparity between traditional office technology and deskless tools, management started taking action to accelerate the development of deskless tools. So today I've invited Ashish Joshi from goDeskless, which is an AI-powered workforce automation platform designed for the frontline deskless workforce. And he's going to share his insights over the last 12 months and also what the future's going to look like. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to San Francisco so we can speak with Ashish right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
So my name is Ashish Joshi. I'm CEO at goDeskless. And we make software in the cloud that allows enterprises to go to market with a business model that is very similar to the shared economy businesses such as Uber or DoorDash or any rideshare platforms or any food delivery platforms, for example. So essentially, we have a cloud platform that allows you to bring your customers, which is your demand side, and your suppliers or service providers in the field together and allow them to engage and interact with each other without you being to have to play a middleman. So we remove the experience friction, and that's what we do.
It's incredibly cool. And before you came on the podcast today, a little bit of research revealed that goDeskless is, like you said, an AI-powered workforce automation platform That's designed for the frontline deskless workforce. But Can you set the scene and tell the listeners a little bit more about the problems that you set out to solve with this technology?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's a historical background to this where we actually came in. And the mind map was simple. We started looking at how businesses were done, or even today in the B2B enterprises are done, and what people face as challenges. And some of the observations were, we are still in an era where people are having to pick up the phone, or people are having to go to a web form somewhere and fill up the information for someone behind the desk to pick it up and then come back to the people to tell us that, okay, we'll have someone at your place on this date and this time. And then we saw the paradox there where I can share my ride just using my smartphone and just one button click. And it just goes and gives me a time and date and person who's going to pick me up. And we said, well, that's a completely radically different experience. Why don't I have that frictionless experience in certain other categories that I deal with? For example, scheduling someone to come out to do my solar installation, or someone to come out and fix my internet, or create or set up my cable network. And we looked at and said, technology, basically what we had 15, 20 years, it has remained pretty much same. And as a result, there are two things happening. A, we have to, as a consumer, subject to someone else's timeframes that are being given, as opposed to what we are now used to, which is when I need it and where I need it, because I have a smartphone. so I'm ever connected. So it was one problem from experience perspective. Why can't I actually dictate when someone wants is going to come to my home when I am available, not when they are available, right? So that was one problem. Second problem from the field perspective, especially after COVID, is how do we make this engagement? If someone's coming to my home, how do we make this safe, secure, and if possible, remote, so that if they don't have to, then they won't have to, right? So it kind of saves everyone from, let's say, someone showing up and we don't know what we don't know with COVID pandemic going around. If I have a problem, and let's say, for example, we can do a video call on Zoom, or we can do a video call on other third-party software. We can do a video call on using my smartphone to smartphone. Why can't I use the same technology and have a video call done between a field personnel and kind of a customer and see what the problem is? And if that can be solved by just looking at it remotely, then great. Then everyone's happy. It's quick. I don't have to wait as a customer. And it's also safe from my perspective, as well as it's safe for a person who's in the field coming out to me, right? So it's kind of both ways. So two things that we targeted to solve. Number one, how do we bring that frictionless experience and make it when I want it, where I want it, which is what I call age of convenience-driven economy. And second is the safety and remote engagement from a field personnel perspective.
And the fact that approximately 80% of the total workforce, or 2.7 billion people around the world, now make up for a deskless population completely blows my mind. So just for people listening that probably never even thought about this, can you just tell the listeners a little bit more about the type of deskless job roles that we're talking about here?
So 2.7 billion was something that we envisioned around end of 2019 when we didn't have COVID.
Yeah.
After COVID, that number has probably doubled.
Wow.
And practically pretty much everyone's now working from home. So anyone who's not in the office scenario is connected remotely and working is a deskless worker, not behind a desk, even though metaphorically speaking, I'm saying. But predominantly, we look at people who are feet on the ground. We classify them as feet on ground. So they fall into there are B2C business categories, which are gig workers, as we call them. Someone's coming out to fix some electrical issues at your home, or someone's coming out to repair your dishwasher, for example. That's gig economy workers. And there are businesses as well, B2B business examples, which employ their employees or partners, which are skilled workforce, as I call it, or trained workforce. For example, B2B telcos use a lot of their employees as a field workforce and partner employees to maintain and service their cell tower antennas, for example, or their fiber cable network, which is laid out in the field. So someone has to go there and monitor it, fix it. There are preventive maintenance use cases. Talk about manufacturing, for example. Anybody that's working in the factory, who's out there, who's not connected, who's not a technical IT worker, but still has a touch point. Or you're looking at oil and natural gas, miles and miles of pipelines in the plant, and someone has to go and check all the valves. All these are, in our opinion, are the field workers. They are in the field. They're not sitting behind the desk, but they still need the information, access to the information, access to the critical or business critical information, I would say, to perform their job. And most of the times capture some information and update the existing set of information. So any compliance-driven business, for example, construction, great example, right? Someone's building a huge, let's say, airport, right? Turnkey companies that build things like ports, airports, or rail networks, or petroleum factories. Everything that you do, every nail you drill, every beam you put in place, has to be labeled, has to be barcoded, has to be noted when it was put in place, what tests were performed. If you're laying or pouring concrete, what strength was poured, and did it pour to your specifications and codes. All that needs to be captured, and it has to be captured when you are actually doing the job. You can't do that a month after. So all these businesses, the workforce that does it, they all come under the category of field workforce.
So with that in mind, how is your technology at goDeskless helping to elevate field workforce's productivity and efficiency? Because that's the real value add here, isn't it, what you're doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the first and foremost thing we do is the benefits from two ways. One is from, you look at it from a customer's perspective, what the benefit is as an end user consumer. And then second, from business's perspective, which is the field worker's perspective, right? What the benefits are. From a customer's perspective, it's removal of friction. I don't have to wait. It's so simple for me to interact with the business and get my things in line, in order and schedule. It's as simple as scheduling a ride on the smartphone. And we're talking about millennials, and they're not going to have patience to wait for 5 minutes on a phone. Someone to come and tell me that, okay, so and so person is going to come, show up in 3 days between 4 to 6 p.m. No, I want them when I am at home. So that mindset change, the economy of convenience or age of convenience, we are bringing that model. So it helps customers to define their need based on their convenience. So that is one. So that's ease of doing business from customer's perspective. That is a huge benefit. And the entire generation is actually moving that way. And it's actually coming to businesses as well. It was limited to B2C, to consumer businesses. It's coming to B2B as well, large enterprises. From a business's perspective, if you look at any asset heavy or a field operation heavy business, the number one cost drag on them is operational expense, and that involves with the field workforce. Now, if I can provide a technology that helps remove that middleman, and then I can connect this need or the request coming in directly with the person in the field, and if I use AI to intelligently figure out who's the best one that I have to pair this request with, then I've achieved a huge, I would say, goal, an objective from an organization's perspective to cut that operational expense, to have someone to man that demand. Second, when we actually use the AI techniques in some of the models, and these models are completely configurable, then I'm also leaving less error for, I would say, less room for error. So I know exactly who's available, who hasn't taken the time off, so I can actually schedule it accordingly, and I have a greater guarantee of getting the work done. Third one, for example, in some of the cases that we are seeing, especially in the post-pandemic era, if I can actually do compliance processes such as inspection remotely via video calls, then I'm avoiding travel. That's a huge benefit because nobody can travel in lockdown eras when we have air bubbles in place. So business continuum is also achieved with something like this. You can get things done rather quickly with less time spent, and also you save a ton of operational expense on this one, right? Yeah. This technology can also be used embedded into your existing technology. So it doesn't basically replace what you have. That's another benefit we provide. It augments and enhances the stack of the technology, the product that you already have. So we don't come and enforce that. We replace something so that you have invested in something over the years. That investment is actually a wash now, and you take this one, which is 9 out of 10 products too. We don't do that. We embed into what you already have. So we actually extend the life of your investment. So these are some of the benefits. This benefit from consumer perspective, there are benefits from business perspective.
And I'm curious though, what kind of challenges do you face with getting some deskless workers in the field to embrace and adopt your technology? Is there any resistance there?
I wouldn't say there is a resistance from users' side. I wouldn't call it a resistance, but I would call it a cautious approach
Yeah.
from businesses to take this and hand it over, roll it out. And this cautious approach is not just because of their goDeskless. Obviously, it's a completely new experience. It's more of a thought that we are bringing in a new model to engage our workforce and customers together. So they want to be a little bit cautious, and they will go out and test it out, and then they'll roll out completely. And that's what we see. And it is pertinent to every single technology that you introduce. Nobody goes a big bang with a completely new product. So from a CEO perspective, I'm not too much worried about this, but we do see that customers do take, especially in B2B scenarios, it takes some time to become mainstream and get it out in every possible hand. And there are obviously other challenges that the enterprises have in terms of challenges. For example, how do I train my workforce? We tell them that, well, you don't have to train anyone on using WhatsApp or Facebook, do you? It's the same thing as that. If they know how to use those products, it's as easy as point, click, and share. And that's what we actually do. That's how we have designed it.
And I'm curious, have you seen disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic shine a bright spotlight on deskless workers? Because at the very beginning of the podcast, we were talking about that figure of 2.7 billion, and now that's probably doubled now. But are there any other disruptions that you've seen?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are seeing a huge spike, especially starting this year as the businesses have started to open up. Because more and more businesses are moving towards adding this shared economy business model to their existing business models. So brick and mortar, for example, they're trying to move and serve their customers in a better way by adding delivery services. Now, if you look at delivery services, it's nothing but demand and supply standardizing on one platform that is driven by AI. Ordering food, for example, it's the same principle as ordering the ride, as ordering your medicines, right, and getting them delivered. They all are operating on the same principles. And that thought process is coming into businesses now because they are understanding that the consumer mindset has moved and COVID has basically propelled them to use their apps and order things and get them delivered rather than them having to go out. Once you have that as a consumer mindset, you never go back. And you start expecting that from every single business. And now businesses have started to understand that. And they are starting to see a need to have that model added. And that's what I was saying. When all these B2B technologies that are standardized on 15-year-old CRM platforms, those platforms inherently weren't designed to provide this kind of experience. They were designed to tether the experience, because the data as well as the engagement flows through its technology platforms. And that disruption is actually happening. So the disruption is how do you separate the engagement from the data? Right? So all these shared economy platforms you see, they've actually separated that data and engagement layer where the engagement happens between a customer and a field person, but the data goes through a platform. And that is not very easy for these businesses. That's where the disruption is happening from technology perspective. From a business perspective, the disruption is happening where customers are requesting when I want it, where I want it, and it's app-based, and just connect me directly, and I don't have to deal with a middleman. And everything, if I can order this, I also should be able to order this on point and click.
And just to bring to life what goDeskless achieves, how it works, etc., do you have any use cases or client stories that you could share just to help people listening understand the difference that goDeskless can make?
Yes. So incidentally, even though we are a small company, I would say from a technology perspective, we are 35 people. The fact that we have world's largest commercial automotive manufacturer trusting us, world's largest commercial construction company trusting us, and world's largest B2B telecom infrastructure company that flows 24% of world's internet data, they trust and use us. It gives you validation of what this technology and platform can do. And quickly, I'll give you use cases in all these three. From automotive perspective, we essentially are automating the fleets to communicate directly and engage the fleet on the road to the next service center on the route, noticing the issues in the engine directly. So there's no more you wait till the problem to happen. We already know from telematics perspective, we take that. So we are making the vehicle smart, and we are making the service experience even smarter on the go. Right? So that's where in automotive, in commercial automotive, that is trucks, for example, that's how it's being used. From construction perspective, inspections are critical. For example, I give an example. We have a customer that builds a lot of plants, that builds airports. So one of their processes is concrete pouring. They build a lot of big bridges. So how do I inspect this? Because these inspections happen based on where, in which part of the world the project's going on, and the codes are different. So you need to have worldwide experts to look at these steps, and these are third-party independent inspectors. And without the inspection, you can't move to the next step of the project. Now, so rather than flowing people in, now we can actually allow them to engage in a video call from the field itself. So someone pouring cement in Hong Kong can actually engage someone in Germany, and they can take a look at it. Someone putting a big flange in a shipbuilding factory can engage someone way from, let's say, Holland, and they can take a look at it and see if the work is done according to the codes. And if the approval can be done quickly right there, you're saving 3 weeks of time. That was previous COVID, because in COVID era, you can't even travel. So we are solving a huge problem for that industry. So we have automotive, we've done, and B2B telco. My fiber is laid out miles and miles and miles of fiber optic cable. I want to ensure that no one's digging and building a house on top of it, because you cut one single cable, you just cut it, and you're knocking down internet traffic for the entire country. So they have what they call patrollers. They go on assigned routes and make sure that things are okay. They capture pictures, take the logs, you upload that. Sometimes you have to be in an area where there is no internet, so offline connectivity, and be able to work through that. That's a use case we solve.
I love that. And there's been so many changes this year that we've already talked about, and I suspect that things are going to continue to evolve. And I've got to ask, what is it that excites you about the future for the deskless worker and deskless worker technology, and the role that ultimately that goDeskless will play in that future?
I think what excites me most is that even though the technology is a backbone, how it is changing the experience paradigm for an end user. I mean, it excites me that we are giving something to the organizations and saying, take this and give it to your customers, because we've made this product for your users. Because today, if you look at customer experience and all the customer experience tools, they're essentially meant for people who sit in the office to help their customers. But those tools are made for the office workers. It's the first time there is an organization like goDeskless is coming in and saying, now this one is for your customers. You just give it to them and they use this. You don't have to do anything. You can brand this with your logo and your color codes and stuff. But this is for your customers to connect with your people. That change of experience in the way it connects with people, that excites me. And that is, I would say, disruption that's coming, that ties into the disruption we talked about. Right? And then the fact that we can leverage AI, in fact, that we can leverage some of the technologies that are coming up, that is just going to evolve and make this experience a lot easier and I would say closer to the consumer. Our focus is to stay with that consumer side evolution and then guide the businesses along with to kind of come up to that level. And that's what we're going to see. And that excites me.
And I look forward to continuing this journey with you and seeing how things evolve. And it would be great to get you on later in the year and see how that is taking shape. But before I let you go, could I ask that you remind everyone listening of where they can find you online and contact your team if they've got any questions about anything we talked about today?
Absolutely. Best way to stay in touch with us is obviously go to our website. Everything's there. Our custom. I mean, if you like to see what we do, just sign up for a trial. It's super easy. You can download our apps, and that connects you with our platform. And if you can drop us an email, hello@goDeskless.com. We are nice people. We like to hear from you. So it's simple hello will do. And that's the easiest way to get in touch with us.
Well, it's been great chatting with you today, especially learning more about the AI-powered workforce automation technology and also how it's designed for frontline deskless workers. But more than anything, those key learnings from that mass push towards a digital workforce. I think it's something that we're all trying to get to grips with right now. And a big thank you for making it easy for everybody to understand. So thanks for sharing that with me today.
Absolutely. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
The fact that approximately 80% of the total workforce, or 2.7 billion people on the planet, now make up the deskless population completely blows my mind. And those new to remote work faced issues arising from the lack of digital tools to aid with their productivity. Certainly got me thinking about the global workforce, where we're heading, and the role that technology is going to play in that. But over to you. What have you witnessed over the last 12 months? How have you adapted and evolved, and your employer? As always, please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. I look forward to hearing more about your experiences, and I'll return again tomorrow with another guest. So all that's left for me to say is a genuine thank you for choosing to tune into this podcast every day. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.